Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm predicting the Lerena versus Merhy fight. If you're new around here though and you haven't subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do need like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Lerena is 28-2 with 14 KOs, and Merhy is 31-1 with 26 KOs. This fight is a 12-round fight in the heavyweight division. Lorena's last fight was a win via TKO in round 3 versus Dubois, and Merhy's last fight was a win via TKO in round 3 versus Kirsten. Lerena is the former IBO World Heavyweight Champion, and Merhy is the former WBA World Cruiserweight Champion. This fight is in Lorena's home country of South Africa. Lerena, as a fighter, he has a stocky build. Compared to most heavyweights, he's smaller, but not against Merhy. Merhy is the smaller fighter. I believe Lerena is 6'1", and Merhy is 5'11", if I'm right in saying. Lerena is a southpaw. He's faced adversity, of course. I mean, he's faced coming off the back of a stoppage defeat versus Dubois now, and so of course he's faced adversity. He is a powerful, explosive kind of counter-punching fighter to an extent. He has that at times. He has that kind of surprise factor about him, and it seemed to surprise Dubois, and just to be able to do enough to be able to get them few knockdowns. I think a couple of them was more based off the injury of some sort of injury to Dubois, but he still managed. He was there to do it, and he was there to cause it. And I think the first one, especially the first knockdown that was suffered from Lerena to Dubois, it was probably just maybe a surprise factor, maybe that explosiveness, counter kind of punching, maybe playing a little bit possum. That kind of played a factor in being able to make a tough test against Dubois and put up a good fight, and probably one of his toughest tests, Dubois, and bar probably Joyce, and other than that, maybe. I mean, he's got snapping shots. He'll hunt you down, especially when he thinks you're hurt, and I think he's a solid fighter. There's definitely things that are probably negative about him. Let's speak about them. He doesn't have much defensive movement. He doesn't use many combinations. Obviously, at times he'll have that one punch kind of maybe not knockout but knockdown ability, and like I said, that surprise factor about him. He didn't pounce on Dubois, which is something which I thought was a little bit questionable, I suppose, and something which he definitely should have done when he was hurt. Of course, Dubois was hurt right early on, and if he'd have just pounced on him, he probably would have got him out. He was in a shaky position, and I mean, he let Dubois get back into it. He sat back and let him get back into it, and that's why Dubois managed to get the victory. But he was definitely there for the taking, you'd like to say, and I don't know why he didn't do it. Maybe he was just a bit shell-shocked and a bit surprised himself at the moment, because of course he probably wasn't expecting it, and maybe that was why he didn't do it, but he didn't. He can sit at range at times, kind of links to his lack of defensive movement. He opens his guard very much so when he gets hit, and there was at times where Dubois, when he was finally having success, he was having success with ease, because he'd hit him with one big punch, and then Lerena would just open his guard, and then he'd get hit with multiple other blows within a combination. He also doesn't really throw combinations himself, Lerena. He does kind of rely, like I said, on that surprise element, but he is a good fighter. He's a good counter puncher. He always kind of give at least one back after maybe a couple being received, and he's solid. Maybe not got the best of chins, but I suppose you can't really say that much in the heavyweight division, because I mean, I imagine if most people got hit with a big punch from Dubois, then they probably wouldn't be standing. But let's speak about Merhy. So he's got a solid jab, he's got decent feints, he's powerful, he sets up well off the jab, he imposes himself, and he of course is smaller than Lerena. To an extent, you could probably say that he has better movement in general. The feints aren't just kind of like stuttering feints, they're just constant hand movement, so it's difficult to be able to tell when he is going to strike, and when he does, he'll set off with a good solid jab and then set up some big blows. He will overcommit, and when he does, he is left wide open, and he is a bit wild at times, but if he does land, then I mean, from the 26 knockouts, it shows that he does have that power to be able to get people out of there. And of course, I mean, you'd imagine most people in this division to be powerful. Of course, they are both cruiserweights and coming into the heavyweight division, and I believe I might have got the IBO World Heavyweight thing wrong. I think he might have been a cruiserweight IBO champion, Lerena. I might be wrong. Sorry about if he was. Um, but either way, I believe they're both coming from cruiserweights, if I'm right in saying. But they still pack that power, and that's something you don't always see coming from the cruiserweights. But they have that, and that's what makes this fight interesting to me. I think there is that always that element of that big shot being landed, like most heavyweight fights, and I think there's times where Merhy can struggle at range. He's not got he can struggle cutting off the ring, and so I mean overall, if Lerena can counterpunch, use a bit of surprise elements at times, even just counterpunching normally in general, and just try up his defensive movement a little bit more and just not maybe get shell shocked as much. I suppose now he's being the home fighter and you have that support, he might be a bit more tuned in. He just seems to just kind of switch off after getting hit versus Dubois, but you can see that there is there, and it is that ability is there. He might be able to find success. Both are slower starters. They don't throw loads. Like I said, I think Merhy's the more active of the two, and yeah, I think it'll just be whenever there's a big punch that lands, there'll be a big punch. Lerena is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Lerena will win via unanimous decision. Wouldn't surprise me if Merhy could possibly get a stoppage, just depending on what Lorena's movements saying and how he is fighting throughout the fight, coming off the loss, of course. And it's just, I mean, Merhy's been fighting, like I said, lesser opponents recently. That last fight was I know it's coming off a little while of him being out, but that opponent was terrible, and he definitely could have stopped him even earlier than that, and he probably should have, to be honest, because it was a terrible fight. And yeah, I mean, Lerena, I think he'll win. I think now he's faced that adversity, he's going to be wanting in his home country to be making that impact, and he will get a unanimous decision win. I don't know if I'd see him being able to get the stoppage win. I think he'll probably be on the back foot for a lot of it. But yeah, now moving on from there, I mean, there's a few matchups which I've got here, which I think makes this fight more interesting, because Merhy's been spoke about as being a possible heavyweight contender. Maybe more recently he's not been because of the fights he's been fighting and stuff. But when he was in his peak, there was conversations about, especially when he was in cruiserweight, there was conversations about how good he is as a cruiserweight. But I mean, for whoever wins this fight, in my opinion, like I said, Lerena. There's a few fights I've got here. Parker, he's got a big fight versus Django. Well, it's kind of a big fight, but big for his career if he still wants to be around in the big kind of top heavyweight contendership. If he can win this one, then he'll probably be back around it to an extent. So this fight would be another good stepping stone for him if he wants to get back into it. Depends, if he loses against Django, then he probably will retire. Wallin is another option. Wallin has always been talked about by the big names, and it's just not really seemingly fought anybody massively of note as of recent, and so could be an option if he just wants to keep more active. And Takam, I don't mind that as another option. He is coming off a big victory himself, of course, and I think this would be a good fight for him. I think he is just willing to fight anybody at anywhere at any point now, and that's where the point he is at, is in his career, and I respect that. Kind of like a Chisora, but a better than Chisora. Little dig there, didn't mean that on purpose, I don't want it to be personal. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.